To a large degree, if you want your son to grow up to be a good man, you'll need a strong woman in his life growing up. Yes, of course, having a good father in your son's life is also important when trying to raise a good man. But in this video, I'm going to talk about how a strong woman has a huge impact on the development of the boys in the world. Even a bigger impact sometimes, most often, than a father. If you watch sports at all, you've probably heard some professional athlete thank their mother. It happens more often than you might realize. You see, many professional athletes credit their mothers more than their fathers for their strength and resilience, often citing the immense support, sacrifices, and mental fortitude their mothers provided throughout their athletic development, which played a crucial role in shaping their character and work ethic as athletes. Now, that's a quote straight from a Google search. Google professional athlete thanks their mom and see what pops up. The question is, why is that? Why would professional athletes attribute their success more often to their moms instead of their dads? We hear all the time that boys need a father in their lives, and I'm not going to try and dispel that because I agree with him. But here the issue is not whether the young boys need a father in their lives rather than a mother. The issue is which parent potentially has more influence, is more likely to raise a good man. I believe, and many people would agree with me, that mom is more important in all kinds of ways. Now, before I continue, let me make sure you understand what I mean when I say a good man. Good to me is a man that is respectful to those around him, absolutely to authority figures. It's a man that prioritizes the welfare of others over themselves. It's a man that recognizes that it's not about him. It's most often about putting others first. That to me is a good man. A good man recognizes that life isn't easy. It's tough more often than not. The challenges lie around every corner. And as a U.S. Navy SEAL would say, the only easy day was yesterday. And any and every mom out there who has birthed and raised children will tell you that it's the mental toughness that gets her through the day, every day, a series of seemingly endless days at times. It's the women in a young boy's life that, in my opinion, have the biggest impact on who they will grow up to be. Let me take a minute here for a story about how a woman had a huge impact on my son when he was pretty young. My son played ice hockey from around 6 years old until he was 10 or 11. Now, if you want to play ice hockey, you have to be a good skater. Lousy skaters can't really play the game, even as little kids. And they never play for long if they aren't constantly improving their skating skills because they won't be able to keep up. When my son was playing, I always encouraged him to take skating lessons, both during the hockey season and in the off season. One year, I had him take private lessons with a figure skating coach, a woman. During one of his very first lessons with her, she called over one of her other students, a girl much younger than my son, a figure skater. I watched from the stands as a short conversation took place, and then I saw the little girl and my son, I think he was 9 or 10 at the time, line up for what was obviously going to be a race around the rink. Long story short, that little girl smoked my son in a race. That woman, the figure skating coach, wanted to make her point clear to my son that skating wasn't about size and strength, it was about form. The little girl had it. My son, even as strong of a skater as he was at the time, had a lot to learn. That's the impact a smart, strong woman can have on a boy. No yelling, no insulting, no horseplay silliness, just a quiet voice, a thoughtful approach, and her point was made. My son's skating improved a lot that year under her guidance. For me, I couldn't have been happier. Some dads would have teased and belittled their son for having lost the race to a little figure skating girl. I never said a word. My son had his first real lesson in understanding to never underestimate someone. Younger, older, male, female, That didn't matter as much as what was the skill being tested. Many years later, in high school, it was not a shock to him to realize that most of the students in the top 20% of the class, those with the best grades, were mostly girls. Many more girls than boys in that group. The women in a young boy's life tend to teach in a way that really gets through into the head of a young boy. Women understand that many times the best path to get from point A to point B is not a straight line. It's a line that meanders, has a bunch of turns in it, but ultimately hits its mark. Men, generally speaking, foolishly believe that the shortest, most direct path is the way to go. It doesn't matter if there are obstacles or challenges in the way. Smash right through and bingo, you've reached your destination. Women teachers tend to make their point more subtly. Boys, especially young boys, don't want to disappoint their mothers. They're very protective of their mothers. Have you ever seen two young boys trashing each other, and then one crosses the line by making a mother joke? Bad call. That's usually when punches start flying. Most boys understand that mothers are off limits when it comes to trash talk. Now, dads, you could say the most vile, hurtful thing about a kid's dad, and that generally becomes a back and forth that gets more and more nasty and degrading. But that's okay. Trash talking a dad does not get the same response as trash talking someone's mom. That's the bond a young boy feels for his mother compared to his father. That's why moms are so influential in a young boy's life. Do something stupid and make your mom cry, that leaves a mark on a kid, a mark on his soul. Moms in general have a power over their sons, an ability to get them to pay attention and listen, to learn valuable lessons. And now, of course, I'm talking about their young sons. Teenagers are a whole different ball of wax. And as I've emphasized in so many of my videos, it's when your kids are young that you can have the greatest impact, the greatest influence over them. And moms, above all, have real power over their young sons. A strong mom recognizes that power and uses it for good, for the good of her son. Men so often credit their moms for having the biggest influence in their life. Now, the title of this video is not Good Mom, but Good Women. Because if you're lucky, like I was, you might find other women that can have a huge impact on developing your young son. When my son was in high school, usually a difficult time for dealing with boys, he had two women that I'd like to credit for having some really important influence on him. The first was a 50-plus-year-old woman named Carrie. She wanted to become a veterinarian, enlisted in the military, put in her time to earn the GI Bill, went to college, and eventually became a vet. She ended up doing exactly what she had always dreamed of doing. That's a great American success story. Strong, intelligent, hardworking woman that put in the time and effort to earn her dream. That's a fantastic woman for my son to partner with in a race. A great person that he can look up to and respect for all she had accomplished. The fact that she was a mountain bike racer was the in that got my son to pay attention to her. A strong woman for my son to look up to and respect for all that she had achieved. Thanks, Carrie. The second woman had probably even more influence on my son, Lisa. Lisa ran her own company, putting on mountain bike races and trail runs. She was also very experienced in adventure racing. My son did 2 adventure races as a member of her team, with Lisa as the captain. 24-hour races. Google adventure racing to see what that sport is all about. She's a great example of a strong woman, business owner, ultra endurance athlete, and mom herself. Thanks, Lisa. If you want your son to grow up respecting women, better understanding what women can bring to the table, try and find women that your young son can look up to. Now, this is very important. This is not about finding a successful woman doctor or attorney or some other professional. Your young son could probably care less about those things. You have to find a woman that does something that appeals to your son. If your son plays guitar, try and find a woman that can really play. Drawing, painting, find someone that excels in those areas if that's what interests your son. Find a woman that your son will look up to because she does something that he's interested in, something that would capture his attention. Now, mom will always be, should always be, the number one female influence in your son's life. But having additional strong women in your young son's life can contribute to developing the decency, kindness, empathy, commitment, sacrifice, etc. The qualities that women are more likely to share than a man. Every good man possesses those qualities. I'm not referring to those qualities, decency, kindness, empathy, commitment, sacrifices, whatever, as female qualities, because obviously men possess those qualities as well. But when it comes to teaching those qualities to a young boy, women tend to do a much better job than the guys. I started this video quoting from a Google search. Professional athletes credit their mothers more than their fathers for their strength and resilience, the support, sacrifices, and mental fortitude their mothers provided throughout their athletic development, which played a crucial role in shaping their character and work ethic as athletes. Moms did that for their boys, and their boys, more often than not, recognized that it was mom that did that for them, more so than dad. Now, dads have their own influence with many traits that boys need to develop growing up. But raising a boy to be a good man, to a large degree, falls to mom or some other influential woman in a young boy's life. A woman is the most likely teacher of those qualities, those characteristics. Now lastly, of course, I need to recognize my wife, my son's mother. She was the one that laid the foundation when raising our good man. She used her womanly skills to teach him, persuade him, to manipulate him at times, to get him on the right path and keep him on it. My wife's influence in developing our son to be a good man is immeasurable. Our son is an independent, confident, good decision maker because of the first and the most important woman in his life growing up, his mother. She taught him those things. The fact that we were lucky enough to have a few other strong women in his life that contributed to his development was the icing on the cake. Thanks for listening.